Thank you all for attending. Item 1, to note substitutes in accordance with Committee Procedure Rule 4. We have Councillor Eaves for Councillor Brown. Apologies are from Councillor Brown and Councillor Ellis. Item 3, to receive declaration of interest from members in respect of any matters on the agenda. Can you indicate on your microphone if you have any? No, thank you. 4, to be agreed by general affirmation the minutes of the previous Scrutiny Committee held on the 22nd of January 2025. Can I have general affirmation, please?
Agreed.
Thank you. Item 5, to consider any items that the Chairman agrees to take as urgent business, and I have none. So we come on to item 6, which is the main consideration this evening, Equalities and Diversity Scheme, proposed update and refresh. And I call upon Louise Duffield to introduce us to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Evening, members. So hopefully the report is self-explanatory, and I'll keep my comments to the minimum. This is obviously an active area of work for us. So we have a 2020 to 2024 scheme, which came to the end last year. Throughout the duration of that scheme and ongoing, it's something we're working on with both our workforce and our communities. So I think we start from a really strong position in terms of proposing this refresh. I think as we go through, we'll also provide an update on the activities that have happened since you last had an update in 2022, but we'll do that alongside making recommendations for any changes that are needed. And I think whilst it is an equalities scheme and we obviously have regard to our legal responsibilities, our scope is a little bit wider in terms of understanding the needs and preferences and desires of our communities and our workforce. So that's why we've got things like paying attention to care leavers in there. And I think we'll also look at things like hidden homelessness and so on. So that was all I had to say. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Louise. So if people would like to indicate if they wish to ask any questions. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Chairman. The report's really good, and I tried to get my head around it today, and I asked my wife for advice as well, because she's a specialist in some of these things. But one of the things that I was wondering whether after COVID, there's a lot of people having different things that may not be covered in some of our headings, and I just wondered whether we should be looking at adding something there for, because people who during COVID, I think COVID had attacked a lot of people's weaknesses and made them worse, which may not have been a problem before. That was just a thought I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I think that's really helpful, and I think when we start to look at both disabilities, hidden disabilities and medical needs, we'll actually have due regard to that. I think it's obviously topical in the news today in terms of the change in the state of the nation's health post between 2019 and now. So thank you for raising that. We'll absolutely cover that.
Thank you. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. Put myself up. Right. I'd like to ask why the Equality and Diversity Progress Report is 3 years old, and when's the next one going to be? Because there was quite a lot about Musva and the Ukrainians, and all of that's really gone by the board now. So, yeah, when's the next one? Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. So I think our proposal is, is to carry out a progress update and use that to inform the refresh. So in terms of managing our resources to do the pieces of work concurrently, so that you'll get both of those in the autumn.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Eaves? You happy?
Yes, 2 more things.
Yes, please carry on.
Now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, yes. The second one is religion, one of the protected characteristics. If we look at the figures in the census, we've been given the figures for the 2011 census, 62% of people locally were Christian. And yet you look at the 2021 census, only 47.9% were Christian and 42% no religion. And if you ask how many religious funerals there are in England and Wales now, which I think is quite a good indicator of how many people out there are religious, it's actually only 17%. So what I'm saying is, in the light of the decline in Christian belief in this district, which may have even continued beyond 2021, don't you think it's a bit archaic to have a Christian prayer before the district meeting? And wouldn't it be better to have something slightly more general, more inclusive, basically? Thank you. And I have one more thing, but I'll come back to it.
I'll come back to you, yes, thank you.
So I think, Councillor Reeves, we need to think about the scope. So that's a matter, a constitutional matter, and not part of this review. I think that councillors set the constitution, and that should be discussed there, not here.
And you have another question?
And the last one is disability, objective 2. We obviously have a duty here of equality. We want to advance equality of opportunity. And 5% of the population are disabled a lot. This is not my terminology. And 9% are disabled a little. So there's quite a lot of people out there who have disabilities. And I don't think we should be making decisions about these people without their involvement. So what I'm suggesting is that we should have maybe a community champions group. We have tried this in Burgess Hill, as Councillor Eggleston will remember, and it was difficult because there are so many different types of disability. But I still think they're the ones who know where the drop curbs should be. They're the ones who know where the height barriers are impeding them from entering a car park, all that kind of thing. When we talked about the WAV taxis here, the wheelchair accessible taxis, they couldn't get here to participate. They couldn't get to the council to ask a question in full council because there weren't taxis after 5 o'clock in the evening. So how are they supposed to contribute to tell us what they need, basically? Thank you.
Thank you. Who would like to answer that one?
I think, yeah, we'll have a look at the way in which we interact with groups. I think you make a really good point in terms of to lump everybody together and assume that their needs can be expressed in one way is something we also must be careful not to do. So I think in conducting this work, we'll bring in some expertise to help us do that, and that will be part of the brief to them to think about how, because we don't need to rewrite from the beginning here, do we? There's lots of other expert groups out there who we can engage with as we carry out that work.
Is that helpful? Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Can I just ask Councillor Bashir, if you've got your red light on but your name hasn't appeared here, did you want to speak? You didn't know. Okay.
Well, I've got it here.
I don't know why it's red.
Everybody knows that.
Councillor Wood then.
Yeah, I'd just like to make an inclusion in paragraph 6 of the policy. Now, when the Equalities Act was drafted in 2010, it wouldn't have used a term like neurodiversity because the language just wasn't around in 2010. And there are clearly some, for example, in the neurodiversity area, such as people with autism, there are some people with autism who would regard themselves as disabled, and there are others who wouldn't. So I think it would be good that we had a refresh. Now, we can't put it in those 9 protected characteristics because it wasn't defined by the law, but in our subsequent list of characteristics that we think are important, I think the word neurodiversity should be included, please.
Thank you.
Absolutely agree with you, and we can be very clear that in the 9 protected characteristics, when we talk about disability, we're talking about visible disabilities, hidden disabilities, neurodiversity, and we're allowing that space for people to self-define as well.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Eggleton.
Thank you, Chair. Just wondering, in terms of next steps, I noticed in point 19, the first I, that other locally held data sources would be consulted. Would you mind just unpacking that a little bit more? And I may have some more questions, Chair, so I might ask you to indulge me a little.
I will.
Thank you, Councillor Eggleton. I think possibly part of what I was driving at there is that the census is an irregular but important set of data, but we also carry out a lot of work in for example, preparing for our district plan. I won't give you a whole list of sources now, but I know, like many councils, we are very data rich, and having a look at the various sources we hold in terms of whether it's the work we do with our communities, our own staff profile, we'll try to pull all that together because there's a richness there.
So mostly sorry, Chair.
Yes, you go.
Mostly a desktop study. I mean, just to extend some of Councillor Eve's thinking, is there any possibility of primary data collection, performing interviews with some of these persons to actually truly understand their lived experiences?
So I think the point there specifically refers to data sources. So I think that is a sort of what I was alluding to there was desktop. I think we have great relationships with a large range of community groups. So I think as we commission someone to come in and do a piece of work with us, understanding those networks is really important. So whether we would need to actually conduct interviews with members of the community, it's that reinventing the wheel point, isn't it? There are other people who are already having those conversations who can inform us. But we have really strong networks across various groups around the district.
Okay, thank you. And one last one,
Yes,
if I may,
Rob,
Chair.
yes.
I didn't see anything about intersectionality. At the moment, these various categories are treated as discrete groups, but intersectionality suggests that you may belong to multiple groups and experience a unique kind of challenge or more or less extreme versions thereof. To what extent is that going to be considered as part of this work?
I think it's really similar to the point that I made about categories beyond the protected characteristics. So it's trying to get that richness of understanding of the experiences of all of our communities. And so, yes, we can have a look at that.
Thank you.
You happy with that? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Councillor Pascoe.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, officers, for the report. I think it's great that we go beyond our legal obligations on this matter, and I'm pleased to hear that, we foster more of a culture that's inclusive and diverse. My question is around the application of the policies. I was wondering if officers could give us a bit more information about how we recognise bias when we're approaching minority groups, and how that's minimised in terms of recruitment and the way that we deliver services.
So I think rather than me wax lyrical on an update now and sort of try and do it off the top of my head, we will include that in what we'll bring forward in the autumn. But Paula has done a significant amount of work in redesigning our recruitment processes for a multitude of benefits, that being one of them. But we will absolutely provide that, because I think there are various services around the council. I'll just give one example. The work that's done upstream, working with people who are at risk of becoming homeless, is really all about understanding their individual needs and how we can help them. So we might not badge it in terms of bias or anything like that, but we badge it in terms of having a relationship with people and understanding their needs and trying to anticipate them. So there are lots of great examples of that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You happy with that?
I'm
Do
good.
you want anything else you want to say?
I had a question around the maternity and paternity benefits that were sort of listed in one of the appendices. I suppose I'd like to know more about the differences between the paternity and maternity benefits, as more and more we see men being a primary care provider at home, and what policies keep women working within the workplace so that they don't miss out on career opportunities, and also support men to take paternity care that's fair relative to what a mother might take.
So the way that our maternity policies have always been structured allows people the flexibility to think about what works for them. There's also the possibility to share that as well in terms of maternity, paternity, but I can send you a copy of our policy.
That'd be good, thank you.
Right.
That's it.
Thank you. Right. Is there anybody else who wants to raise any questions? It looks like we've got a big body of work to carry out, and it's a very worthwhile one too, so thanks for all your input. So we'll move to the recommendations. To consider this report, the current Equality and Diversity Scheme 2020-24, attached at Appendix A, and the 2022 update report attached at Appendix B, which we've done, and provide any comments for consideration in updating and refreshing this work. So if you could show on your buttons, please.
Sorry, I made a mistake. I've touched the wrong button.
Oh.
Sorry. Second committee of the day. Everyone's gone.
Never mind, we'll forgive you.
Councillor Bashir, are you able to vote? Just back to the red light. Councillor Hatton,
Yes,
have you voted?
I thought I had.
Press harder.
Yes, I have.
Can you see it? It's not voted, so let's try it again.
Try a
Are you
different
assertive
finger.
with it? I think she's voting, but
I think I voted,
I
yes.
can't make it work.
Okay.
Has mine worked?
Yours has, mine hasn't.
Yours would.
So I'll read out what's here, yes, rather than
You can
add one.
just up the,
Count it in, right, so that's 10-4, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you for attending, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was weird.